everyone. My
Good
name
morning.
is Dr. Nur Shuhada Jasni, and other colleagues, other team, other members in my other contributors, authors, co-authors in my of my paper is Prof. Haslinda and also Ms. Purwantingsi Wibowo. Okay, so this is the presentation outline of my study. Okay, as to start on this topic, we know that sustainability is the world primary concern, and everyone or most companies, they want to know what are the best practices on how to operationalize the sustainability practices. So they are trying to find the balance between or harmonization between profit maximization and sustainable development. So to find the harmonization or balance, most of them fail. Okay, they are failed to identify the operationalization. So the effect is they face the overconsumption of vulnerable resources, and also lack of competitive advantage, and also deteriorate the company's reputation and decrease the investor confidence. So the main study, the objective of my study is to understand the environmental practices in business operation in main industry player in Asia, then to identify the internal business factors that influence the success of environmental practices. Right. For the first part, literature review. Um, the first thing when we want to talk about internal business factors and how they improve the sustainability practices, we need to include resources, the one that company had, and also the capabilities, the competency of the organization. Uh, then there are surveys by Hoffman, Taylor, and Wood, 2012. So they also they already establish of the finding is they establish the relationship between capabilities and environmental management practices, and also the need of sufficient training for that. So and also the organizational culture that support the sustainability practices also is needed. And overall is there is need to identify or respond to sustainability related um, strategic ways as a process or essence for the company to have a successful sustainability practices. And also the main important thing is to relate with environmental practices with business continuity, financial performance and business continuity. So they need to link the environmental practices with the core company core businesses so that they understand or conscious about what they are doing, and also the effect or the negative effect of for the company, and also for the earnings of the company. And that is in terms of the consequences of their practices. But then internally, for operationalization, so they need to come up with a good process in terms of manager commitment and also cost control, so that they can avoid overconsumption of vulnerable financial, natural and social capital. And yeah, that is about how environmental practices influence financial performance in terms of cost controlling, and also they need to um, uh, identify the supply chain, the process of supply chain, so that they will um, mitigate or they can control the effect of um, the overconsumption of resources. Alright, so the methodology of this study or this paper, we use qualitative deductive technique, semi-structural interview, and we already interviewed five main industry player in Malaysia that have been identified from Bloomberg ESG Index. They have been listed for more than 10 years. So the interview question mainly we ask about what are the variables that determine the practical environmental success, and we use thematic analysis to analyze the um, transcription, right? Okay, so the first finding from the quotes here from the interview that we have transcribed, we find out that the codes derive into and also lead to operating as we look at this, the variables that determine the practical environmental success. So all of them the answer lead to they need to operate in lesser environmental impact and planning and setting targets. So that is under excellent processes. Okay. Then we categorize under green efficiency, and the final theme is excellent internal processes. And the second finding, we found out that the codes lead to cost saving measure that incurred compliant costs. Also in the categorization is green efficiency. But the first one is on operational, the setting targets. The second one is on cost saving, because they need to meet some certain certification compliance. So that is for the first part. So this second part, they need also to balance between compliance, cost saving. So everything lead to excellent internal processes. Then the third part is they also need to generate income from the product, from the waste that they have. They need to recycle it and produce generate income from waste to wealth or something, and also provide green product, uh, even though it is at premium price. So the final theme for successful environmental practice, they need to have uh, the first final theme is excellent internal process. Second theme is produce quality green products. So for discussion, okay, we understand that company need to invest massive amount of investment because they need to cater the compliance that cost a lot. Okay, and also that they also compliance also can revoke the certification, so they need to take care of that. Also they need to take care of the cost controlling of the investment and also cost incurred, and also they need to take care of how to produce green products. So everything need to be harmonized together in sustainable operationalization. And yeah, they need to think about the cost effective and time saving, engage with the employee so that they can come up with high quality outcome. Right, so that is the discussion. And for conclusion, so they need to think about the human resource skills, the competency on how to leverage the technology, because we cannot just use our human capability. We need to capitalize or leverage the technologies so that we can produce uh, faster and quicker, okay, to achieve the pre-planned goals. Even there is a from the finding also the company also use like drone, something, the technology that can they don't have to go there to the site, they just use technology, so that will help. Okay, and also in terms of green product, they need to get trust from the customer, because they will um, they will sell at premium price because it is quite costly with R&D. So that is one of the concern, but there is a market on that as well. Okay, so for this study, it's a small number of sustainability managers and executive. The sample is small, but we cater the one that have that in maturity stage of sustainability evolution. Even though the solution or the finding is not one size fits all solution, but we get the input from each of the company, and also we try to get the what are the best practice that we can see on overall view, or from iceberg iceberg view, okay, from so that we can assist other companies that try to find or intend to find the right response or strategically in making sustainability decision making. Okay, I think that's all from me. Thank you, and I open for any Q&A.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Noor. That's excellent. Thank you. Let me kick off the question. The obvious question for me is there are obviously conscientious companies out there, but in the kind of middle strata of companies, there's the conflict between wanting to be socially responsible and wanting to make money. And obviously there are times when those two things are in conflict. I think you said somewhere, you said in your paper, you said that renewable, and one of the quotes was renewable energy is expensive. So kind of in a nutshell, how do these companies balance the need to make profit versus the need to be socially responsible? How do they, which one gets priority?
Okay, the first thing that when I asked them, what they the conclusion is they put profit maximization or business continuity first. Yep, because they need to operationalize, they need to sell goods, but to address the stakeholders pressures, and also to address or to legitimate themselves in the environment, business environment, they try to be responsible.
Right. Did you, during the research, did you find any kind of indication that there might be, at least in the future, is there some way that we can reconcile those two things, that we could be both responsible and sustainable and still maximize profit? Yes. Did they have to be in conflict?
They work hand in hand together, because sustainability is part of risk for them if they not tackle it or address it properly. So they have the internal control as well for this. They put the sustainability under one department, under sustainability as the head, the corporate sustainability executive is the head. Then they have the internal control, they have the internal audit, risk management, all under one side. But the head is accounting, from accounting background, meaning that they want to cater financial and non-financial affairs as well.
Right. Okay, cool. Right, don't want to hog the conversation. Can I throw it open to the floor? Anybody there would like to contribute? Anybody has a question? Assuming behind those blank pages there are real people. Okay, if there are people that have a think, see if you've got a question. In the meantime, I have one more question for you, Dr. Noor. Yeah, sorry, I thought somebody was jumping in. One point back to this whole thing about the value of being responsible. I think you made a comment at the end, something about the value of consumer opinion, or maybe I made that comment. What is the value obviously there are people out there who respect companies which are socially responsible, and that obviously has a value because it improves the brand and the public opinion towards that company and towards those products. How valuable do you think that is now, and is there some way that the value of that could be increased to make people want to be more sustainable?
Yes. Okay. The first thing is they want to be they want to at this point when they hit by COVID-19, they want to be sustainable, they want to be resilient. So to be resilient and also sustainable, they need to have this precautious exercise where they need to have to take care of the consumer and also business operational. So with that, uh, they need to use both capabilities lah to operate to produce human green products, and also that is externally to survive. They need to sell things. At the same time, internally they need to cater the competency of their employees to have the sustainability culture as well, so that they can be resilient whatever condition, economic condition it is. They are there and did not be heated much.
Right, right. Okay, cool. That's all I have. Anybody else in the room want to contribute? Any comments from anybody? Right, you're off the hook, Dr. No. Thank you so much, Dr. No. Thank you. See you in
Welcome.
the next conference.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot. Do we have the next presenter? Yes, we
Yes.
do. Hi, good
Hi.
morning. Ms.
Hi, good
Zahira?
morning. Yes.
Hi, okay. Right, if you're ready, the floor is yours.
All right. Thank you. Okay, I will show you my presentation slide.
Yep.
Okay, thank you very much. Before I start, I just want to uh, introduce myself. I'm Norliana Zahira, and everyone can call me Zahira. Okay, and I'm a PhD student from UiTM Shah Alam under supervision Dr. Azarina Zakaria. Today I would like to present my paper entitled Media and Funding, a qualitative study of Malaysian social welfare NGOs. All right, before I proceed, why I choose this topic? Okay, because nowadays during the pandemic, okay, we know that during the pandemic, we know that. Hello, can you see me?
Yes, no
Okay,
problem.
all right. Okay, sorry. Okay, so nowadays we know that during the pandemic, media is very important for all organization to start sustain, okay, to continue the operations. Okay, so that is why this paper is came out, which is the media usage for NGOs is very lack. Okay, and this is the outline for this paper, which is this is to deliver the content of this paper. All right. Okay, next, this is the introduction, which is the NGOs, as we know, is the third largest sectors in the world after the government agencies and also the corporations. And NGOs bring, even though NGOs is a not-for-profit organization, but their roles is very important for societies, for the development of the countries, and so on, which is provide and promote changes to the society. That is why I focus for NGOs funding, how they sustain and continue their operations through media. Okay, so in Malaysia, NGOs have 10 categories of NGOs, and I focus to social welfare NGOs. All right. Social welfare NGOs is the largest registered NGOs in Malaysia, but there is a limited study focused on Malaysian social welfare. So that is why I just want to focus on that. Okay, there are a lot of challenges for NGOs in Malaysia, and the very prominent challenges for NGOs is the funding. And this is the example of the articles that I found from the newspaper. Okay. Okay. At the same time, the numbers of registered Malaysian NGOs increased. Okay. However, the funding allocated to Malaysian NGOs are decreased. Okay, until currently. Okay, 2021. Uh, all right. Okay. So that is what NGOs is very important in Malaysia, and also the funding. If they want to continue the operation, have they need the strong funding sources. Okay, the funding trends in NGOs and also in the world is the NGOs commonly depend on the external funding sources. The external funding sources, for example, they applied for the government grant, they applied for the sponsor. Okay, they depends on the public donors and so on. Okay, however, as I mentioned before, the funding allocated to the NGOs are decreased, and sometimes it's volatile, which is depend on the economic environment. Okay, so that this is how this paper emerged, okay, to explore the extent of media usage in acquiring funding for Malaysian social welfare NGOs. All right. Okay, next. Okay, media is the communication tools, okay, to disseminate the information. And in this table shows the differences between the mass media and social media, which is media will categorize into two category, mass media and social media, which is the mass media is the disseminate the information in a one-way manner to a broad audiences. However, for the social media, is based on the internet-based application used to have two ways communication, which is if one person disseminate the information to others, they need the response from the other parties. That is the difference between these two. Okay, and the example of mass media is the traditional method, such as the newspapers, television, and so on. And the social media is currently we used like the Facebook, Instagram, and so on. All right. So media is used to to disseminate the information, and also media can help NGOs to become more visible to the public. Yes, of course, because before this, if we just do the crowdfunding, we need to go we go to the event and we collect the funding, right? But through media, also it makes their organization and their activities more visible to public. That is before this they already know the existence of NGOs, or did not know the existence of the NGOs. Okay, and also through media it will influence or attract the public attention. Okay, because of the elements, graphical elements in the media. Okay, so that is why NGOs. That is why this study want to explore, okay, the extent of the media usage among the NGOs to acquire the funding. All right, this study it was framed by hypodermic needle theory by Laswell, 1920, which is okay. HNT explained that this is how media can influence the public attitude and also the public behavior. Okay, okay, how media can influence the public perceptions on the information or the message delivered through NGOs, and how people uh, can respond, okay, to the message or to the information delivered by the NGOs. All right, this study was formulated or structured through qualitative research design, okay, based on the inductive reasoning, okay, to construct the data. And this study have been interviewed with 6 participants from Malaysian social welfare NGOs, uh, and the 6 participants is based on the criteria. Okay, this is the activities that I have done in the preliminary study. Okay, the criteria chosen here is the based on the location, which is the Selangor, and then I choose the registered Malaysian NGOs and the Malaysian Social Welfare Group. And the participants is from the board of NGOs or the staff that were experienced using media in acquiring funding. Okay, next, this is how we construct the interview questions. And the first interview question is, what types of media did you use in your NGOs? This is the second question, why did you use media in your NGOs? And the third question, to what extent media impact your NGOs to acquire funding? And these interview questions were validated through external experts, and also I have done the pilot interview. Okay, the external expert from the individual that have the experience in NGOs and the individual that have experience in managing and allocate funding to NGOs. And the pilot interview have done with 3 NGOs representative from 2 social welfare NGOs and 1 religion NGOs. Okay.
Zahira, can you speed it up a little bit? You're running out of time.
Oh, all right.
Thank
Sorry.
you.
Okay, this is data collection procedure, and I'm doing the analysis through thematic analysis to construct the data. And this is the findings in my study. Okay, the findings is there are 5 media types: television, official website, Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp. Okay, which is both mass media and social media are very important for NGOs to acquire funding. And this is the functions of media. Most of the participants mentioned that media is used to disseminate the information to the public because they deliver and promote their activities through through media. Okay, and next, media will attract the public attention, which is most of the participants used all the elements in the media platforms. And the media impacts have 3 media impacts, which is it increase the visibility of NGOs, which is most of the participants explained that they before this the audience did not know the existence of NGOs, but after that, there are many audience or followers follow their programs and follow their media socials. And this is another impact. Which is its influence public perceptions, which is before this the public did not know the NGOs, but based on the how they use all the elements in the media, it can influence the public perceptions on the NGOs. And this is the next themes, which is influence the public action to provide the funding to NGOs. And the discussion here is, yes, okay, first theme, it is based on the Malaysian background, which is the findings is one of the types of media is television, which is television is the mass media. Okay, why it is prominent? Because it based on Malaysian background. Malaysian is one of the developing countries, which is there are some of the suburban countries that they cannot access social media. So that is why that is important. Television is still important and prominent in Malaysia. And also both mass media and social media should be incorporated to gain more funding. And it is based on the baby boomers characteristics, because one of there are most of the participants are from the baby boomers. So that is why television is most prominent. Okay. And yes, the media function, the second theme is to disseminate information. Why? Because yes, media information, by using the media, it make the information easy to retrieve and to access by the audience. And also media is frequently used in a new era. Okay, the media impact in terms of NGOs visibility. Okay, the existence of NGOs through media is more visible compared to face. Okay, and influence public perception. It based on media characteristics and also influence the public actions for funding. Okay, next, the conclusion. Okay, the study gives the implication for theory, method, and practical. Okay, the conclusion is yes, media facilitate Malaysian social welfare NGOs in acquiring funding. In terms of the theoretical implication or contribution, it provides the additional insight to NGOs and media usage in soliciting funding. And in terms of method, yes, it is give the implication for Malaysian social welfare NGOs because it's limited studies focus on Malaysian social welfare NGOs. And in terms of practical, both mass media and social media should be incorporated, used to acquire funding. And this is the limitation of the study, which is there are many vulnerable groups addressed by Malaysian SW NGOs, so that the findings should be interpreted cautiously because maybe they have the different missions. Okay, and the second one is the findings have limited applicable to the broader Malaysian NGOs because there are 10 groups other Malaysian NGOs registered in Malaysia. And this is the future research for this study, which is the first one is the exploration of media and funding with other NGOs groups. Okay, because we have another 9 group of NGOs. And the second one is exploration of different NGOs based on the religion, because most of the participants, 6 participants here, are from Muslim, but they in Malaysia there are another religions, and it can also carry out quantitatively. All right, that's all for me. Okay,
Great, thank you, Zahira. Thank you. A bit
all right.
overrun there, but not too bad.
Okay.
That's great. I'm a little confused. Can you just clarify? I understand that you are comparing mass media and social media. My understanding is you're comparing mass media versus social media to see which is the most effective in funding. I didn't quite understand any kind of comparison between the effectiveness of the two.
Okay, actually, this I just want to explore the extent of media usage among Malaysian social welfare NGOs, and the findings were both incorporated, both are important for them to acquire funding. There is I in my study I'm not differentiate between these two, but I explore the
At the risk of oversimplifying, is it not just a question of saying, do you use them both? And they say yes, and the research is finished. How do you take it further than that?
sorry, I don't understand your question, Prof.
Okay. You're saying that the research was intended to see whether these two streams of funding were pursued, and why can't you just ask them, do you use mass media and social media, to which they say yes, and your research is finished. If you're comparing them, isn't there some kind of either qualitative or quantitative comparison that one is more effective than the other, or one is used more than another? I just get the feeling that at the end of the day, you're saying both are used, both are effective, which doesn't really take us very far.
Okay. Okay. Actually, I just want to respond to the research question, which is I want to sorry, I don't understand. Sorry, Prof.
Okay. I it comes back to the research question. It seemed that the research question, as far as I could make out, was to explore the use, and that doesn't really tell me exactly what you're doing. To explore is a very vague term. So if you're comparing them, then I didn't see a comparison other than, yes, they are both used. I didn't get past that point in your paper. I didn't get past the point where you're saying both mass media and social media are used by NGOs. That's as far as I got. I didn't get anything further than that.
So meaning that I should explain more on how they use both social and mass media.
Yes, I think there should be some kind of a comparison or some kind of an end result which would help the NGOs to say, in future, in this circumstance, I'm going to use mass media because of certain conditions which Zahira has identified. But if you simply say, well, you can use both of them, it still leaves the NGOs bosses saying, well, which should I use? Which is the most effective? And then it leads to a whole series of questions. So, as I say, all I got from the paper was you saying that both of these channels are used by NGOs. Let me leave that with you, Zahira. Thank you so much. Let me see if anybody on the floor wants to contribute. I don't want to hog the conversation. Anybody there would like to join in the conversation? Anybody in our audience?
Any comments from the floor?
Come on the floor. Where's the floor? It's a very quiet floor this morning. I suspect there's nobody there. Okay, listen, that's fine. Thank you, Zahira. That was great. Give some thought to that, because that would be future research for you. That would be a further paper, is to say, okay, I've come to this point. I've looked at these two streams of media. Now let me explore a specific aspect of perhaps how one is more effective than another, or in a certain circumstance, one is more effective than another, or for certain types of NGOs, this mass media is more efficient than social media. But I think you've got a lot more room for further research, for further papers.
Okay.
So thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ahmed Hafiz Saleh. Saleh. Is there anybody going to listen? Hey, hi.
I'm here, Professor.
Hi, how are you? Good morning. I seem to have lost a few people. Would you like to go now? Are you ready to go, Doctor? Would you like to go next?
Yes, I'm ready now.
Okay, cool. The floor is yours, sir.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Okay, Assalamualaikum and good morning for everyone. Today, I would like to present about our research, which is a qualitative assessment of entrepreneurial activities of Malaysian private tahfiz institutions in Malaysia. So, private tahfiz institution is considered as religious schools in Malaysia, and we will talk about it today. With me, we have our team, which is Nur Azmi Anas, Zuriani Yaakob, Muhammad Arifin, Muhammad Taharin, and Wahibur Rahman from Indonesia. So I am Muhammad Hafiz bin Salih from Universiti Sains Islam Malaysia. So about this research, the establishment of private tahfiz institutions has received an encouraging response in order to meet the country's mainstream education, in order to produce a generation of high quality Hufaz and contribute to the country's development. Hufaz refers to those who memorize the entire Quran, which from the beginning of the page, from page 1 until page 600. So it means that the Hufaz refers to those who are able to recite the whole Quran without looking at the Mus'haf, without looking at the Quran. So this education is now rapidly expanding in Malaysia. To the Muslim community's growing awareness of the importance of understanding the Quran. So we can say that parents nowadays in Malaysia are quite aware about their children education. So most of them uh, like to send their children memorizing the Quran. So the term tahfiz al-Quran itself means Quranic memorization. So when the students go to the school, so they learn to recite the Quran and memorize the Quran. So it is a process of learning through the method of memorization, whereby every verse in the Quran, which is 6,236 verses, will be memorized with the aim of preserving the text of the Quran from any changes, addition and subtraction, and to convey it so that it will continue to spread to the next generation. So those who memorize the Quran will teach the next generation how to recite the Quran properly. But our topic is more on the financial management. However, the high demand for Quranic education has resulted in the establishment of uncontrolled private TAF institution. There's so many private TAF institutions in Malaysia. In Malaysia, there are more than 1,000 private TAF institution today. Okay, maybe which harm on curriculum, especially on financial management, facility governance, academic collaboration with government recognized institutions, and other areas. So, the government funds, arms, and endowments channeled directly to the private tahfiz institutions in Malaysia states were insufficient. It's not enough to help them to survive. So, other than that, okay, the main problem of private tahfiz institutions are poor educational management and financial resources constraints, which have a direct impact on the production of excellent hufaz. This is in addition to a small number of private tahfiz institutions accountability issues involving illegal fundraising and misgovernance. So when if you can see the picture, okay, this is just an example. Some private tahfiz institutions in Malaysia manipulate and use their students to raise funds to cover the operating costs of their respective premises by asking for alms at petrol stations, banks, and other places where the local community congregated. This situation has demonstrated that imbalance between this Al-Quran education and the responsibility of finding funds should be fully accountable to the management of private tahfiz institutions in Malaysia. So private tahfiz institutions are encouraged to engage in entrepreneurial activities to do business. Okay, as we can see in the picture, Kedai Martin means the Martin shop, where this is belongs to a tahfiz private tahfiz institution. This private tahfiz institution also has their own restaurant. Okay, as an alternative to generate their income rather than relying solely on government assistance, endowment funds, and public fundraising through charity to elevate and increase the private TAFE institution level of self-sufficiency from time to time. So it is believed and proved by research that entrepreneurial activities are able to maintain a stable, fair, and balanced Muslim economy. So the research objectives, this research aims to identify what type of entrepreneurial activities that the private tahfiz institutions are running to pay operational and management costs. Second, to analyze the obstacles, limitations, problems faced by the tahfiz institution that run entrepreneurial activities, and also to assess the balance of entrepreneurial activities in educational governance of these religious and educational institutions. Okay, the research methodology. This is a qualitative case study with the leading research instrument being a semi-structured interview with the founders, the principals, and the administrators of Malaysian private tough institutions that engage in entrepreneurial activities. So the sampling technique used in this study included 7 participants, means 7 schools, 7 toughest institutions from Malaysia's selected private tough institutions. They had 2 types of entrepreneurial activities. Among them are products and also services. Thematic analysis was used to analyze the data, which had 3 main themes: the private TAFE institutions, entrepreneurial activities, the challenges, constraints, and problems faced by the private TAFE institutions, and the balance of entrepreneurial activities in educational governance in the private TAFE institutions. Okay. For the findings and discussion about the first research objectives, the private TAFE institutions entrepreneurial activities. 6 of 7 private TAFE institutions rely entirely on income generated from entrepreneurial activities to cover their respective institutions' operating costs, while number 7, the participant number 7 only generates entrepreneurial income as a side income. Why? This is because the 7th school is a branch of a well-known private TAFE institution with 10,000 schools around the world. In contrast, school number 1 until number 6 is a private TAFE institution managed by a local founder. Furthermore, private TAFE institutions-led entrepreneurial activities were found to be capable of covering between 40 to 50% of an institution operating costs in addition to tuition fees charged to the students, government assistance, arms, and also endowments. Okay. To answer research objective number 2, the challenges, constraints, and problems faced by private TAFE institutions that run their own business. Okay, the institutions involved in the study face 3 significant challenges. The first one is working capital. Number 2 is the raw material supply and product quality. And the third one is effective marketing of products and services. Other than that, there are other issues, including the lack of knowledge in entrepreneurial activities, because maybe most of the principals have an Islamic education background. They are not entrepreneur, so maybe there are lack of knowledge, and also competition with other supermarkets and shops, staff constraints, and negative public perceptions of student involvement in private TAFE institution enrollment. Okay, and to answer research objective number 3, the balance of entrepreneurial activities in educational governance in private TAFE institutions, we found that all private TAFE institutions were balanced. Okay, this is the best part, which is balance in carrying out entrepreneurial activities with separate governance between entrepreneurship and education. Okay, this is followed by student involvement that does not interfere with the teaching and learning activities and mix entrepreneurial activities as a co-curricular training ground for the students. As can be seen, these private TAFE institutions, which the 7 schools involving education and entrepreneurship, is well managed and organized. So the conclusion is, based on the findings of the study, we can say that entrepreneurial activities carried out by the institutions can cover the operating costs, can help them, to cover the operating costs of each institutions up to 50%, which is very significant, especially in the current COVID-19 pandemic era. However, institutions involved in the study face significant challenges in their respective business, such as working capital, the production of goods and services, and effective marketing. Due to the separation of the two entities into excellent and orderly separate governance, the institutions in the study were found to be balanced in carrying out educational and entrepreneurial activities. And concerning accountability for the illegal collection of public funds by a small number of private tahfiz institution operators, the authorities must strictly enforce the law to prevent this activity from becoming widespread. And the solution that can be proposed to solve this main problem is government intervention through the Ministry of Entrepreneur and Cooperative Development, Malaysian Small and Medium Enterprise Corporation, SME, and the National Entrepreneurship Institute, as well as the involvement of Islamic institutions related to tahfiz education or institution, such as the Malaysian Islamic Development Department, JAKIM, the State Islamic Religious Council, Majlis Agama Islam Negeri, the State Islamic Religious Department, Jabatan Agama Islam Negeri, and tahfiz associations in this country to provide ample space and opportunities for the tahfiz institution to venture into this field of entrepreneurship for their survival in the future. Thus, the entrepreneurial activities carried out can be used as an entrepreneurship model that all private tahfiz institutions in Malaysia can emulate to meet the national tahfiz education policy goal of producing 125,000 hufaz by year 2015. So these are some of the entrepreneurial activities of Malaysia. Some of them have their own restaurants, they have their own shops, okay. Some of them are doing vocational training, okay, and also they have some travel agents, okay, takaful and insurance and others. So, okay, these are the activities that are being done by the 7 tahfiz institutions related to this study. So that's all for my presentation. Thank you very much.
That's great. Thank you, Doctor. Very nice. Right. A quick question, which occurred to me. You talked about the way in which they use separate governance to deal with the entrepreneurship versus the teaching. Simple question, does that not create a catch-22 situation in the sense that you need to raise funds for the teaching, and in order to raise funds for the teaching, you need to get separate governance for the entrepreneurial activity, which in itself requires money, and therefore you've got to raise money for that. Is that not a cycle?
What I can see that, okay, most of the time, the tahfiz institutions run by using the money from the fees by the students. Okay, but in some cases, the students are not able to pay the fees, so
Right.
the students have to find more fundings. Okay, and in Malaysia, our government, yes, they give some endowment of funds to help the tahfiz institutions, but not for the operating costs. Okay, let's say to pay the bills, the electricity bills, the water bills, to pay the teachers' salary and others. So this model is suggested to private tahfiz institutions to do some business activities to gain more income. Okay?
Yeah,
So
I get that. I get that. But I thought your point was that by using separate governance, which I assume to mean management, you have separate management for the entrepreneurial activity, which is separate from the management of the teaching activity. But by having such a separate management, then you increase your overhead. You increase your requirement for funds. That's why I say, isn't that a kind of catch-22 situation?
Oh yeah, it's quite hard because but most of the times students, the teachers and the students are not related to the business directly. So the business part will be run by the principal, or he has his own teams. But some of the time, let's say I give you an example, a restaurant, okay, in a restaurant, okay, the restaurant is run by the principal, or he has his own teams, but in the same time, sometimes on Saturday, on Sunday, they will ask the students to involve in the business. Okay, how to they learn it, how to serve the foods, and how to count the money and others like that.
Right.
So okay, it is separately.
Okay, cool. Okay, I won't hold the conversation. Can I have questions from the floor? Anybody care to join in from the floor? I'm not having a lot of success with my floor participants today.
Sorry,
Hey,
Prof. Okay,
hey.
I have no questions, but Dr. Muhammad Hafiz, I just have some my few cents on
Hmm.
how I mean to say that this is how the Tafiz institution still continue their operations, right? Okay, because they have the funding challenges, right? Actually, it seems like how my study is, but you just focus on the entrepreneurial activities and how they operate the entrepreneurial activities to sustain their operations. But in my just my few cents, okay, I think that why don't you just put some of the element by doing the engaging with the any government agencies, or you just have you try to make something just like the sustainable development skills for the Tafiz institutions, meaning that if the private Tafiz institutions have the skills of the development, instead of reciting Al-Quran or memorizing Al-Quran, maybe it is one of the alternative to attract the government ministry of government, any government ministry of government that is related to the Tafiz institutions, to give more funding. This is my few cents, because I have interviewed um, some of NGOs that provide the Tafiz institutions, and this is how they sustain, which is they have the networking with the government also. Okay, that is just my opinion.
Okay, thank you very much, Mrs. Zahira, for
Yeah.
your opinion. Very interesting idea. Thank you very much.
Okay.
It obviously makes life a lot easier if you can get the government to give you more money. Then it obviously avoids having to find other streams of revenue. I guess the question is whether or not you can get them to give more.
Mm. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Doctor. Thanks. Let's move on then, chaps. Is Susanna Yusuf, have you arrived? Susanna Yusuf?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And very good morning to everyone. I'm Susanna binti Yusuf. I'm going to be a representative of our team, okay, to present the title of topic, a qualitative study of physiological challenges towards movement control order among stranded university students. As this is the presentation outline for today's presentation. As an introduction, the severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus 2 SARS-CoV-2 is a newly discovered coronavirus that is highly infectious and contagious, affects the human respiratory system. COVID-19 epidemics emerged in Wuhan, China last December 2019, and since then it has developed into a global public concern for China and countries worldwide. As a measure, Malaysian authorities have enforced a nationwide pandemic action plan known as Movement Control Order MCO since March 2020. So the main problem, okay, for this topic, okay, in Malaysia, schools and institutions closure have affected almost 5 million school students and 1.2 million university students, including about 130,000 international students. Okay, as for university student, okay, based on previous study, shows that those who had been confined were found to be at high prevalence of psychological distress and disorders such as depression, stress, emotional exhaustion and disturbances, low mood, irritability, insomnia, and post-traumatic stress symptoms. The common and high prevalence symptoms were low mood and irritability. And owing to a lack of activity, these students were unable to cope with the many difficulties and obstacles they faced. If these concerns are not adequately handled, the students will develop more psychological health problems, which may have an impact on their well-being. So, for objective of these studies, okay, to explore psychological challenges experienced by stranded college students in overcoming several phases of MCO, and to identify the strategies and the support that assist those students dealing with the challenges during MCO. And for methodology, okay, so this was the phenomenology qualitative study design. Okay, it was conducted in colleges of UiTM Puncak Alam campus among students, and research instrument, okay, semi-structured questionnaires has been used, okay, focusing on the main topic, psychological challenges of stranded college student on the initial adaptive teaching, learning, and sending home student phase during MCO, as well as strategies and the support received in dealing with psychological challenges while stranded in college during the enforcement of MCO. So, your ITM student who stranded in colleges during MCO was the population of this study, okay, and the sample size was 12 students after it reached the saturated data, and purposive sampling technique has been used in this study. Inclusion criteria for this study: students who are in college of UiTM Puncak Alam campus, male and female, and non-resident student has been excluded in this study. All right, so for ethical consideration, UiTM Research Ethics Committee has been approved, okay, permission from college and consent from participants has been gained before the study has been conducted. Okay, data collection, the duration of data collected during January until February 2021, and using the semi-structured interview guide by 2 phases. Okay, first interview session in person to help the researcher to familiarize with the theme of the study, and the second phase was focus group interviews conducted with 4 participants each group that consists of 2 boys and 2 girls each session. Okay, until the data has been saturated. It's about 45 to 1 hour for each session, and it was recorded via Google Meeting apps. So, as for data analysis, all codes was encoded manually, and data were thematically analyzed, which the process contains of 6 steps, which are familiarized with the data, assign preliminary codes to the data in order to describe the content, search for patterns or themes in the codes across the different interviews, and reviews the themes, define and name the themes, and lastly produce the report. Okay. And for the results, so we can see here the socio-demographic characteristic of the participant, okay, including from student age 21 until 23 years old. Okay, all degree students came in from all over the state in Malaysia. Okay, and student between year 2 to year 4 students, okay, consists of 4 males and 8 female students. So these are the team and sub-team that emerge from the interview session. We have three main themes, which are psychological challenges, and sub-team we have stress, loneliness, feel of acceptance, bored, online distance learning, obstacles, and also exhaustion. And for team number 2, hoping for better management in disaster condition. And sub-team we have hoping for better management and also wish for space. And number 3, theme is financial and emotional support as survival during stranded in MCO situation. And we have 2 sub-themes which are financial support as well as emotional support. So we go one by one about the theme, okay, to address objective number 1, which is to explore psychological challenges experienced by stranded college students in overcoming several phases of MCO. We have theme 1, psychological challenges. So examples of quotation in that sub-theme stress, okay, students said, I'm a bit stressed since everyone has returned to their home. Then there were only a few students who did not return. Okay. Also, you can see loneliness. Students said, all my close friends have already gone back while I'm still at college alone. So I was lonely and must adapt to this situation. For feeling acceptance, at first I was stressed, but as time goes by, I can adapt and be happy because I'm not only the ones who are stranded here, but there are still some students here. And feeling bored. Okay, as some students said, at the time, I feel bored because there were no activities to do. An online distance learning obstacle, students said, when we sit in front of a laptop, it is easy to be distracted. So it is hard for us to focus on online class. For exhaustion, students said, during the day of returning student, the student must wait for the bus for a quite long time. We arrived at UiTM Shah Alam in the afternoon. We broke fast there with a lot of people and luggage. The next morning, we departed from there to Pahang. Then they feel exhausted. For team number 2, hoping for better management in disaster condition, hoping for better management for sub-team, students said just one thing. In terms of giving instruction, they should improve more. Yes, it is true when they got last-minute decision, but they should give clear information to us as a student. And for which space, that means they need some space for them to do activity. They said at least they should let us out for a walk around the college and jog. Like in the early MCO, they were angry at me when I was jogging at the college field, even though I was alone at that time. And last but not least, theme number 3, financial and emotional support are survival during stranded in MCO situation. For financial support, we have example for quotation. We not only receive food aid from university management, but also lecturers. It was very helpful so that I could store the food. For emotional support, students said, for example, the person who gave me the most support, of course, my parents and family members. They gave me motivation such as asking me to be patient. And for discussion, for theme number 1, psychological challenges. So the current study found that during MCO, stranded college students face psychological challenges, stress, loneliness, boredom, acceptance, online learning obstacles, and exhaustion were the most reported psychological challenges among stranded college students. So this finding is consistent with Fura et al. 2020, who concluded that most reported psychological challenges among students during confinement include fear, worries, loss of confidence, anxiety, stress, lost interest, worthless, afraid, and tension. The majority of the participants experienced stress during all 4 phases of MCO. So during the initial phase, most students were unhappy and had been experiencing stress since the beginning of MCO because they could not return home. It is parallel to a previous study conducted at the University of Spain, which found a positive correlation between increased stress and even impact during the initial weeks of the confinement. So learning online and uncertainty about their status of returning home was highlighted as the resource of stress among the participants and during the interview session. So team 2, hoping for better management in disaster condition. So this study found that the majority of the participants were upset with the current management, which was that university management always gave sudden and last-minute decision to them. So thus they hope that the institution should plan and organize properly, not to provide the student with implications if this problem arise again. A study by Hasanajik 2020 also emphasized the importance of having a strategic plan to deal with and mitigate the effect of catastrophe. So almost all of them already bought a bus or flight ticket after hearing about MCO enforcement in Malaysia, but they cannot go home at that particular time. So the majority of the participants expressed dissatisfaction with their college, claiming that they feel restricted and trapped. They thought the institution would let them participate in some outdoors activity. Similarly, stranded college students in Philippines expressed a desire for some space after a pandemic hit their country. So their psychological and behavioral patterns may occur due to fewer physical activities, outdoor activities, and the opportunity to interact with friends and family members. Lastly, financial and emotional support is survival during stranded in MCO situation. So since the first day of MCO implementation, these stranded students have received financial support from the college, lecturers, university authorizers, faculty members, and also staff in the form of free meals, personal belongings, and also donations. The government and universities coordinated action and initiatives such as giving food may have considerably decreased the negative impact of a pandemic, loneliness, and ambiguous condition on stranded mental health students. The majority of the participants mentioned their parents, their relatives as the most importantly emotional support system. Similarly, the previous study found that high perceived emotional support from family and friends was significantly related to their emotions during COVID-19. This study found that high perceived emotional support from family and friends was greatly helping people feel sustained and share their feeling during COVID-19. So what study contribution? Okay, from these studies, the researchers have gathered information related to student experiences and the challenges during COVID-19 and MCO, the impact of COVID-19 and MCO on student quality of life related mental and psychological well-being, the approaches, strategies, and the support received in addressing the challenges during COVID-19 and MCO. And from this outcome, it could help in providing the information to the institution and government in developing and enhancing the standard operating procedure that could have been implemented in improving the way in organizing, implementing, and managing students in the future. As for conclusion, okay, the most psychological challenges stated by the student are the most of them was stress, lonely, bored, feeling of acceptance, ODL obstacles, and exhausted when staying at the campus. So the student also struggled the most in following all the university's authorities' rules and instruction while adapting to new things. However, this study indicated that many parties supported students while stranded at a residential college, especially the university itself. All of them were satisfied after receiving all the support. Emotional support from family and peers plays a vital role in ensuring these students' psychological well-being. So as for acknowledgement, okay, we would like to thank Center for Nursing Study, Faculty of Health Sciences and UiTM Puncak Alam. Okay, and these are the references of this study. With that, I thank you for your attention. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay, my topic today is about the relationship of sensory design towards the physical environment for autism classroom. Okay, basically this is my contents for this presentation. And what is autism? Okay, autism is a spectrum condition where everyone is different, and autism spectrum disorder is a neurological disorder that affect a child developmental disability which causing the social, communicating and behavioral challenges. Okay, from this slide, it shows that around the world, mostly autism cases increase among their population. The birth becomes smaller each year. Autism is more common in boys than girls in a ratio of 4 to 1, meaning boys are more than infected than girls. So for autism having a lifelong neurobiological logical condition where they will having a social interaction difficulty, communication difficulty, and restricted or repetitive behavior. So with that, they're having a lack of joint attention, having a repetitive patterns of behavior. They also have a pedantic of or odd speech pattern, and also lack of social problem solving ability. With that condition, they will injuring themselves. They also being aggressive and bad temper. So with this, the increasing rate of autism, it gives a great challenge for the education, not only the education, but also to the family community. And the education system, which it really needs the national efforts to address the problem. And it became a significant challenge to public education because many children with autism require intensive interventions to facilitate their participation and success in education setting. Okay, we found that there is an issue regarding designing the learning environment for autism, where designers are lack of awareness in terms of sensory design, creating responsive building for people with autism, that the environment can affect people with autism. Few studies were found, and the design of the physical learning environment, physical classroom space, was largely absent from the literature as compared to the literature that addressed the origin, conditions, treatment, and also teaching approach for children. Okay, the question for this paper is there a relationship between sensory design towards the physical learning environment for autism classroom? And the objective for this research is to explore the relationship between sensory design towards the physical learning environment for autism classroom. So in my literature review, there is 4 key concepts that highlighted in the many scholar, but for this paper, I would like to highlight only for sensory design and physical learning environment. For sensory design, there are 7 components, comprises of acoustic compartmentation, spatial squeezing, transition zone, escape space, sensory zoning, and safety. And for the physical learning environment, there are 9 components. They are accessibility, wayfinding, building skill, toilet provisions, ventilation, windows, threshold, legibility, and furniture. Okay, for research methodology, the quantitative approach employed the survey method to explore the relationship between the sensory design and the physical learning environment. To achieve the aim of the study, there are 3 phases that I've showed here. And this is the strategy. I have the instrument and the sampling method, the sample size, distributed to 384 participants, and the response rate is 45.3%, and using the Likert scale. So next is the data analysis. So I'm using the software SPSS, and the method I use is a Pearson correlation analysis, and the study aimed to test the correlation between the sensory design towards the physical and environment by using the Pearson correlation coefficient, and there was a positive correlation between the two variables, and this finding shows that there are positive correlation between these two elements that seems to have a strong relationship. Okay, for discussion, the result demonstrate that sensory design affect the physical learning environment, and these elements such as acoustic, spatial sequencing, escape space, compartmentation, transition zone, sensory zoning, safety and security contribute to the creating the physical learning environment. In line with previous studies, the sensory design focus on building occupants and paying close attention to how the room can affect acoustic, both in the short and long term. So positively altering the sensory environment conducive to positive and constructive artistic behavior, particularly in learning environment. Hence, it focuses on creating a controlled sensory environment that makes autistic children feel more comfortable and develop their skill. So the sensory design finding at least hint that this dimension, these two dimensions, is essential to the physical learning environment and affect user behavior. This result highlights the element that enhance the experience and well-being of autistic through sensory design. So it is hoped that it would provide pleasant space for all autistic in their learning environment setting. This result indicate that sensory design contribute concerning in its capacity to respond to the various autistic sensory needs. So therefore, the exploration by scholar Ghazali in 2018 signifies the importance of paying attention to the sensory design, which would have less impact on autistic behavior. So to conclude this, the strongest relationship between the dimension of sensory design and physical learning environment contribute to creating the physical learning environment. So it is hoped that by creating conducive learning environment, not only optimize the classroom, but also upon parents and teachers' satisfaction. With that, thank you so much for listening. So for Q&A, nanti kemudian lah ya. Okay. For
just a quick answer.
oh, there is coffee. Okay. For next presentation is from Puan Shahira Abdul Malik. Okay. You are dijemput ke rostrum. Thank you.
Right, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay, and very good morning. Rural area school teachers technology adoption lesson learned from the COVID-19 phenomenon. Hi everyone, I'm Shahira Abdul Malik, Faculty of Business, UiTM Cawangan Johor, and I would like to introduce my team members. Okay, Rusnani Muhammad Khalid, Dr. Norin Nur Abdul Aziz, Muhammad Hafizan Musa, and Nurul Ain Abdul Aziz. So as an introduction of this research paper, so the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic in March 20.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh, and a very good morning to everyone. So for today's presentation, I will present about the topics of the socio-demographic factors and eating behaviors among nurses in a teaching hospital. So these are the list of my colleague, Dr. Zamzaliza Abdul Mulud, Ira Nadira Rosli, and Nur Ain Farha, Muhammad Zainun. We are from Center for Nursing Studies, Faculty of Health Sciences, UiTM Puncak Alam campus. These are the list of today's presentations. Okay, I will start with the some introductions for the topics. So eating behaviors refers to a complex interaction between physiological, psychological, and social factors that affect meal timing, food intake quality, and food preferences, whereby the shift work was characterized as work outside daytime hours and including rotating the very erratic schedules and work at night and evening to ensure that all the care and treatment are provided for the patients. As a long working hours, shift work leading to poor dietary habits, negatively affecting their productivity. Wong et al. Showed that nurses working night shift preferred fast food and more snacks to keep them awake and maintain energy due to their heavy workload in the wards. These are the objective for the is divided into two sections. Number one, that is the section A, demographic factors, which involve of the age and etc. And for the section B, it involves of the Dutch Eating Behavior Questionnaire, DEBQ, which consists of 33 items to measure emotional, external, and restrained eating behavior by using 5-point Likert scales. So this instrument, the total score was separated into 3 categories of low, moderate, and high. So the ethical approval to conduct this study were granted from a Research Ethics Committee UiTM as well as from UiTM Medical Specialist Center. So the completed questionnaire were analysed using SPSS for Windows version 25. So for this study, for the objective number 1, we are using the descriptive analysis to analyze the level of eating behavior and the chi-square test and physical-exact test for to identify the relationship between socio-demographic factors with eating behaviors among nurses. Next, we move on to the findings of the study. The level of eating behavior, it divided into 3 results. Number 1, to the level of emotional eating behavior. So most of the nurses had a moderate level of emotional eating behavior, followed by lower is about 23 nurses and high level of emotional eating behavior. So the level of external eating behavior involved of 65 nurses experience high external eating behavior, followed by the moderate as well as the external eating behavior. So for next, the level of restrained eating behavior. So half of the respondents had a moderate level of restrained eating behavior, followed by the 40 nurses with low level and 27 nurses had high restrained eating behavior. So for the next findings, this table 1 showed that the result of relationship between socio-demographic factors and eating behavior. So this table shows that the emotional eating behavior has statistically significant with department, marital status, working hours, as well as the frequency of night shift per month, followed by the external eating behavior. They have the significant, some of them, they have the significance with the socio-demographic data as well as for the restraint. Yeah? So for the restraint eating behavior, they're only having their relationship with the marital status. So next we move on to the discussions. For objective number 1, level of eating behavior, the study revealed that most of nurses will most likely experience moderate emotional eating behavior and moderate restrained eating behavior and high level of external eating behavior. It was in line with study performed by Wong et al., where the number of participants having emotional and restrained eating behavior was higher than external eating behavior. However, this finding contradicted with the study written by Siu Hong, where it reported that the nurses were more prone to experience moderate external eating and moderate restrained eating behavior, while less likely to experience emotional eating behavior. Next, discussion for the second objective, relationship between socio-demographic factor, which age and eating behavior. So this study showed that there was no significant relationship between age with eating behavior. Wong et al. Found that no significant difference with age and eating behavior. However, another study stated that age was statistically significant with restrained eating behavior, where it showed that eating behavior does not influence age. For the relationship between the gender and eating behavior, so the result in gender and eating behavior was found not significant, where from the Wong et al. Also mentioned in their study that most of the nurses were female, and the small number of male nurses may cause significant differences between gender and eating behavior in this study. Next, relationship between the departments and eating behavior. So in this study, it showed that there was a significant difference between departments with emotional and external eating behavior, where it was clarified by the study by Houghton, where nurses cannot leave their position or patient, the reason why the nurses skip their breaks. And then lousy eating behavior may result from being overworked in their respective field. For the marital status and eating behavior, there was a statistically significant where the result is in contrast by a study from Wong et al., where it showed that no significant difference between marital status with all eating behavior. Another study also found that the relationship between marital status with restraint and external eating behavior, where the married nurses working rotation shift had higher work-family conflict than married nurses working day shifts. Next, for the years of working experience and eating behavior. So from this study, where the year of working experience have a significant relationship with external eating behavior, where Wong et al. There was a favorable connection between long-term nurses and external eating habits, where the same study found that nurses with more than 10 years of experience were more prone to have emotional eating behavior and influence their eating behavior. Next, the level of education and eating behavior. So, the level of education also had a significant relationship with external eating behavior. However, a previous study mentioned that the education level was significantly associated with all eating behavior styles. People with poor educations, with the lower education, eat more unhealthy food. So in conclusion, persons with greater education were more mindful of their eating habits than the others. Next is related with the BMI and eating behavior. So the study showed that there was no significant relationship reported between BMI with all types of eating behavior, where the research conducted by previous researchers said a significant relationship between restrained eating behavior and BMI. Next is about, this is the last socio-demographic factors, where the frequency of a night shift per month and eating behavior. So frequency, this is the study found that significant difference with emotional and external eating behavior. Wong et al. Stated that nurses who work once or twice night shift per month were more likely to experience restrained eating behavior. However, the other researcher found that no significant differences between the number of night shifts with the abnormal eating behavior. So the nurses were required to stay awake all night to do their tasks, which was bound to be stressful and exhausting. Next, that is the related with the shift duty. So shift duty with emotional have the significant difference with emotional and eating behavior. So in contrast, Ajmawa demonstrate that the shift duty was significant with restraint and external eating behavior. And in addition, this result was different from a study by Wong et al., which reported a significant association between shift duty with emotional and restraint behavior. As the conclusions, the results show that only emotional and external eating behavior had a significant relationship with shift duty factors among nurses. So it can be concluded that these two eating behaviors might be caused by how the nurses came to cope with the burden of shift works or their environment and surrounding. So working hours of nurses are also one of the factors that lead to abnormal eating behavior. So future study could explore on qualitative research by interviewing nurses throughout their shift to learn more about their eating habit. These are the list of the references used in this study. And lastly, I would like to acknowledge Center for Nursing Studies, Faculty of Health Sciences, UiTM, Research Ethics Committee, UiTM, Shah Alam, as well as the UiTM Medical Specialist Center, Sungai Buloh, which contribute in this study. So with that, thank you.